There's an ancient site hidden deep in the wilderness of the Rocky Mountains that is one of a kind in the entire world. Preliminary evidence shows it could be connected to peoples from over 10,000 years ago. It was only discovered less than a decade ago and still remains virtually unknown. However, its discovery forces us to reconsider what we think we know about the earliest inhabitants of North America. I went in search of this site, backpacking alone for 3 days into a mountain range teeming with grizzly bears and other wildlife. I wanted to see if this discovery was everything that it claimed to be, and if so, to learn from it. What I found during those 3 days was far more complex and significant than I ever imagined. Gotta get my gear packed up and then we'll hit the trail. Got my gear bin here. It's grizzly country, so definitely bear spray. There might be some bugs still alive up there. Heating up my lunch before I hit the trail. Called the solar microwave. All right, let's get going. This mountain range sits in the heart of the old fur trapping region of the American West. These were the days of the mountain men, the wandering trappers looking for beavers in the wilds of North America, to satisfy the fashion tastes of the wealthy back east and overseas in Europe. Although I was familiar with that part of history, I was going to learn there were many more layers of the human story here. Although I had a destination in mind, I paid close attention to my surroundings as I hiked. I figured there were far more clues to the past hiding in plain sight. Oh, look at that right on that corner. That's definitely something. Let's go look at that. Holy cow, there is a ton on this rock. Wow. That is, I don't really know where to begin. Maybe this one over here. I mean, that is so intricate. These things are large. I mean, to give you guys a sense of scale from the bottom up to there, I mean, that's probably 6 feet. Here's my hand just close to it. Obviously, we never want to touch ancient rock art, petroglyphs, pictographs, doesn't matter. So different than what I see down in the Southwest. Kind of interesting, like a cross there. It almost reminds me of like a topographic map with all the lines and stuff. So just down from that, these petroglyphs are of a style that is attributed to the Shoshone people and their ancestors. These figures likely vary in age, but scholars would generally date many of the petroglyphs of this style to between 1,000 to 2,000 years old. But those 3 petroglyphs aren't the only things on this rock. There's 2 more over here. Definitely odd figures or creatures of some kind. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I look at that one, I think of like a squid or an octopus. But we're a long way from the ocean. I wonder what else is along the slope. Yeah, there's definitely some kind of petroglyph up there. What it is, I have no idea. It kind of looks like there's some other figure right there, and possibly some modern initials like a VW. Nothing really else on that face that I can tell. I'm sure there was a meaning to it all. that I don't understand. So I was about to walk back down the hill and I nearly missed, where'd it go, right there. That one almost reminds me of like a female, you know, with long hair. And that's the guy over there. Ooh, there is another elaborate panel. So starting in the left in the shadows, there's a little figure over there. Then moving right, that's interesting. That reminds me a lot of kind of like thunderbird depictions in the Southwest. Must be something from the underworld. Wow, it just keeps going on and on. There's more on that boulder. I've just been working, you know, along this whole ridge line, and they are just thick in here. There's a big image here, but the sun's so harsh on it, and there's so much lichen covering it as well. I would need like a special lens filter, I think, to get anything from that. But over here, another bird of some sorts, it seems. I feel like I could probably spend another hour wandering around here and seeing new stuff, but we got some miles to cover, so probably better keep going. Well, the climb has begun. I think I've got to gain a little over 3,000 feet of elevation today. Headed up onto like that ridge line, I think, and then way back in the mountains. This climb is relentless. Whew. It's beautiful up here, isn't it? I gotta get a little food in me. I feel like I'm bonking a bit. Filming this trip after a couple other big filming expeditions, so I think my body's just a little worn out. Just keep climbing. I'm gonna walk along this exposed ridgeline for quite a while. Well, I'm up above 10K now, meaning 10,000 feet above sea level. And that's one of the things that makes this site so unique, is it's just so high in elevation above sea level. I've got to keep traversing along this ridge, and there's a saddle up there. I'm hoping there's some water, and if so, I'll set up camp there. I think there's a decent chance of storms tonight and tomorrow, so we will see. So I think I'll drop down in here, and that'll also keep me off the ridge in case these storms do move in overnight and it gets nasty. Got a solid tent spot here. I can do a bear hang sort of on the other side there. There's a big enough sheer face, and then I was gonna go check to make sure there's water, but I can hear it running down. So we're good to go. I think I'm gonna grab some water, get dinner rolling, because I am hungry. So I brought some exciting things to cook this next 3 days, but tonight is not one of them. Although this thing, I'm not gonna lie, it's no sponsorship or anything, but this thing is amazing. It's probably one of the best backcountry meals I've ever, like the freeze-dried ones, you know, I've ever had. Of course, I forgot the fuel back at my backpack. It's best to cook away from, you know, where your tent site's gonna be in grizzly country, because you don't want any food smells or drop food, stuff like that around your tent. So I gotta go grab that. The grizzly bear is certainly North America's most feared predator. Although attacks on humans are statistically very rare, they do happen every year. The grizzly once roamed over a large portion of North America, as you can see on this map. Today, their range is dramatically less. This is due to a loss of habitat and intentional killing of the animal because of its sometimes violent interactions with livestock and people. When you're in grizzly country, particularly alone, it forces your senses to heighten. I think that's good for us as modern humans, so often disconnected from the environment around us. After a quick dinner, it was time to hang up my food so that a bear couldn't get it overnight. If I'm above tree line or can't find a suitable tree, I'll hang my food off a sheer rock face, at least 10 feet off the ground.
Oh man, I gotta get up. It's 8 a.m. Definitely not rising and shining early, but had a few incidents last night. Well, there's the bear hang up there. That's actually the third place I had to put it. That was part of the reason for the late sleeping. I had a critter trying to get in it. It's a long story. It wasn't a bear, some rodent, and he cut the rope and I heard it fall, so I went to get it, and yeah, long story. Then we had squalls coming through. It was, shaking the tent, and the coyotes started up and they were making noise. And that being said, let's get some food, let's get some coffee. Let's assess what we're gonna do today. All right, let's get rolling and see if we can find this site today. It's clearly an unsettled weather pattern today. Huh, that kind of looks like a rock wall over there, right? It just seems a bit out of place. I think I need to go check it out. I thought I might walk over here and find a more clearly defined wall or even circular structures like hunting blinds, but this all looks natural to me. I mean, maybe, who knows, there was something in these rocks at one point in time and it's just been so beat up, but that doesn't take away from the fact that there's cairns running this entire slope here. Now, I know I haven't talked a whole lot about this specific site yet, in part because I wasn't super confident in my ability to find it. But as the trail is perhaps getting a little hotter, it's probably a good time to fill you guys in on exactly what I'm looking for out here. The specific site that I'm hoping to see out here is the highest elevation bison or buffalo jump ever recorded in North America. There may also be ancient village sites connected to the jump. Now, there's multiple reasons why a discovery like this could be very significant, and we'll get to those. But let's cover a few basics. First off, the animal itself. The buffalo, or more accurately, the bison, is an American icon. Some people get confused by the terminology, but it refers to the same animal here in the US. Buffalo is more slang, bison is more scientific. I use them both interchangeably, so don't get confused. The bison has been a central figure in the American ecosystem and the lives of native people for millennia. The herds that once roamed the continent were so massive, it's hard for us to comprehend today. Estimates are that at the beginning of 1800, before significant white settlement west of the Mississippi River, there were 30 to 60 million buffalo roaming the Great Plains region. In less than a century, we had brought the bison to the verge of extinction, with only a few hundred animals left at the end of the 1800s. It's the largest extermination of animals ever recorded. I'll tell that tragic story another day. But let's bring it back to the here and now. So we've got our animal.
how about the jump? Buffalo jumps are one way native tribes hunted for this precious commodity. Animals were herded together and eventually run off of cliffs, either dying on impact or being injured enough that a hunter could come in and finish them off. Old buffalo jump sites are found throughout the US. What would make this one so different and important is that it is located thousands of feet higher than any others, in an alpine environment that it wasn't believed bison or even people lived in. So if this was true, how might it change our understanding of the prehistory of North America? This morning, I had originally thought I was a couple miles away from the site I was looking for. But as I studied the landscape, I began to have suspicions that this valley might be an important piece to the puzzle. I only have a basic understanding of how a bison jump functions, but I know enough to know that the actual jump site is only the final, dramatic piece to the entire thing. There would be other clues on the landscape. Things like stone walls, hunting blinds, basically pits of stones that served as places of concealment, cairns or piles of rocks that would serve as directional markers for the men driving the herd, some sort of gathering place or catchment basin where animals could be loosely herded together before the final drive to their death. Of course, there was the human component too, now only in my imagination. Warriors dressed up as wolves to scare the herd where they wanted it. Decoys, men dressed as bison who would jump out and run in front of the panicked animals, hoping the rest of the herd would follow. Other members of the tribe, stationed along the way with animal hides to further scare and direct. Crouching hunters, poised with weapons, ready to attack at the right moment. This picture began playing out in front of me this morning.
There's cairns running this entire slope here. There were more down there. So my theory is they were pushing them along here, and somewhere up over this saddle. Now exactly where? Let's go find out. I mean, could they have piled a few rocks up for camouflage? I mean, yeah, definitely, of course. But in terms of finding any conclusive evidence of that, I think it's going to be hard. I said that back there. I kept walking. I came up to this. I don't know how well the camera does in showing it, but I mean, this is definitely a circular depression. Rocks that were at one point piled fairly high. It just doesn't look natural to me. And you could easily be concealed in here with a great field of view of the herd and your tribesmen coming over that ridge. And so people positioned in this rock field were probably security that the herd didn't come this way. I don't quite understand yet, but they wanted the herd to go down there. There's two noticeable walls or berms here that run perpendicular to the drive line that I wonder if again served as places of camouflage. Gosh, the anticipation these guys must have felt to sit here for hours probably, maybe even a day, you know, with the expectation, the hope that they were going to see a herd coming over that ridge line, knowing that possibly their survival or the survival of their kids or their wives depended on a successful hunt. It's pretty dramatic. Just heard thunder. I think it's going to get nasty here in a second. I'm going to put away this more fragile camera gear and maybe get my rain jacket out and see if I can push up over this ridge before I get caught in lightning. So there's the ridge I believe they would drive the herds over. Right about there is where we were just looking at those other hunting blinds. So I've come along and I saw right this little gap here, and I thought, well, surely the herds would probably try to escape up over that. And you would expect if that was the case, I might find other hunting blind concealments here. And at first look, even though these aren't maybe as obvious, that definitely seems like a pit with smaller rocks that have been sort of pulled out and piled around it. Pit there, one there. Have to keep hiking on to see if there's any more down there. But they're right at the leading edge of the rock field, which again would make sense because you want to keep that herd down there in the valley. And it just makes so much sense because, you know, down there you've got the canyon. The animals aren't going there. On this side, you know, I don't think they're going to go there, especially they're not going there. Same deal on the other side of the valley. Just significant cliffs, hills, and the places you think the animals might try to jet off is also the places where I would find what looked like hunting blinds. As I'm nearing the saddle, we've got another impression there. I don't know how well it shows up. Just up there, there's like a stone wall.
This is my first view from what I've been calling the saddle. I'm looking into the valley and the basin on the other side. I'm about 11,000 feet above sea level at this point, far above any previously documented bison jump anywhere in the world. However, if my research and map study had been correct, the final, dramatic piece to this entire story was somewhere a short ways below me.
Whew, it's cooling off. There's another storm coming in. I was about to jump on here and be like, I'm looking at this sort of rough, jagged slope, but nothing really stands out as being a sort of a final spot. You know, it all looks kind of the same to me. And then I came upon this up here. So right up there behind me, and let me show you guys what I'm basically standing right next to. This whole final slope here is just littered with rocks. I mean, it's just rough, you know. I mean, imagine trying to run over that. So I was studying this and thinking, well, you know, is this something? And then I looked at these two sections of rocks and I thought they look a little odd. And I was thinking, man, they just look like they've been stacked. You know, maybe only two rocks high, like not super high, but right behind them, just a perfect spot of concealment. All down here, there's another spot there, and then that down there also looks like it's been piled up. Could this loose line be the final stop on the whole game drive? It's definitely some larger animal.
Was the slope the actual jump? Was it steep enough? Was there other evidence to support it? These were the questions in my mind.
Stacked, stacked, stacked. Again, it's not very high, but it's hard to imagine those not being placed there by humans. One of the big questions would be why here? And I think there'd be numerous answers to that question. But take a look at this flat out here. Okay, let's say this is the jump. There's a huge flat plain out here that would be a perfect spot to set up your entire village. These people were smart, and they would have been doing this before the horse. And so they're not going to want to kill the game 10 miles or 15 miles from where you're camping and then hauling hundreds, if not thousands of pounds of game back to your camp. There's still a lot I want to see, but I've been flirting with the storm the last 45 minutes. So I'm going to head back, grab my bag over there. and go set up my tent down in that tree line so that if this thing really does open up, at least I've got a dry place to shelter in.
The timing of the storm was frustrating. I felt like I was getting close to piecing it all together, but it would have to wait.
It's a-coming. As you can see, I didn't quite make it. We gotta head down to that tree line, get off this ridge. It's quite a haul from where I was right there out to the tree line, and as you can see, the storm is clearing. Quite a striking view now with all that freshly wet granite.
I sat down to eat a quick lunch and come up with a game plan. While there, I caught movement out of the corner of my eye.
There's an elk over there. I don't think it's caught my scent yet. The wind is blowing in my direction. Kind of like those hunters. I'm behind a rock here. The wind is in my favor. It's a beautiful animal. It's a young one for sure. So sitting down here, I'm kind of getting a different perspective of it all. So right here in the center there is the pass. What I am proposing might be the actual jump, is that right there. You can tell even in just video that that's the most rugged, steepest point of that entire ridgeline there. When the storm hit, I was somewhere like in there. So I still was working my way to the right here, and yeah, I'm kind of curious to continue working over there late this afternoon.
I set off across the flat, curious to put my theory that this was an ancient campsite to the test.
Huh. Teepee rings, perhaps. That's what I was looking for out here. See, they're all about the same size. These rocks, unlike a lot of them, you know, they're not buried in the ground. If you just look around at the random rocks, one, they're not in a circle, but they're in there good, you know, they're not laying on the surface. Yeah, and once you see one, your eyes start picking out others, and they're also all fairly close to each other. Gosh, yeah, you've got that one, that one, that one. I just spotted that one, and I'm sure the more I walk, the more I'm going to see.
These are almost certainly teepee rings, circles of rocks that held down the edges of teepees. When the structures were taken down to be moved, the rocks remained. You can find these cultural remnants across this entire region, where the Plains Indian tribes roamed for centuries. The size of teepees varied, with things like tribal affiliation, time period, and size of family all contributing factors.
I mean, I definitely don't fully understand what this place is, and maybe the next 24 hours will shed more light and maybe not, but clearly this place was known and used heavily by native tribes for probably a long time. You know, try to picture what this would have looked like. Just noticed we're getting glimpses of some of the high peaks now for the first time. spotted this little herd of elk a while back. I'm trying to figure out what I am and if I'm a threat to them or not.
After finding the teepee rings, I spent the rest of the afternoon searching the flat for more clues, but with no luck. Taking a closer look at the jump site and the surrounding hills was going to have to wait until tomorrow.
Pretty nice camp spot over here. Lots of options, good wind protection. Gotta get a tight pitch on a night like this. Here comes the rain. Look at that. I was just getting water down there and I ran up here to grab my camera. Holy moly. That's about as perfect of a rainbow as it gets. And now it's a double rainbow. God is good.
So, what's for dinner tonight? We've got Haribo Gold Bears. Not really, but I am making a soup tonight, which I think is going to really hit the spot on a cold, wet night like this. And that is a lot of food. I hope I brought my big appetite.
Well, good morning. I just got out of the tent and I looked across and holy cow. There is a huge herd of elk. I mean, we're talking 100+ animals. Wow. Pretty cool. Well, I'm gonna go grab the bear hang and then we'll get some breakfast going over here and hit the trail after that. We got a lot to see today. All right, let's go take care of unfinished business. Okay, so there is the proposed jump. I got caught in the rain somewhere about midway there. This morning, I want to go check out the base of this, work my way up to the other side, and then back over to the proposed jump. Something else I want to do is I want to look up on the ground above it, as well as back towards the actual pass, because if they were pushing them there, I think there would be evidence of that. Otherwise, it seems like the herd would just kind of, run the path of least resistance. The way these rocks, they've sort of tumbled, but the way those are situated, it just look like they've been placed there. Another circular possible hunting blind. This sits pretty much right at the base of the big slope. If that is the jump, there it is right there. But what I've been wondering is if they are driving them over here, they'd probably have people on this base to finish them off. Oh wow, okay. Yeah, the closer we're getting to this base, I mean, look, there is just a ton of flakes here like you'd expect from sharpening tools at a butchering site. Yeah, I mean, they're just, now I'm seeing them. It also helps this ground is a little more barren. But wow, yeah, they are everywhere. Just like you'd expect if you were pushing them this way, you had a lot of wounded animals, you were finishing them off in this region. Then down here, kind of in this flat, the butchering begins. It makes a lot of sense. I imagine this wasn't necessarily a clean operation, but a lot of carnage, a lot of chaos. Wow, I mean, I know I said it already, but they just really are everywhere. All shapes, sizes, colors.
This butchering area was noted by the same university team that found this site in the first place. To lay eyes on it in person brought the whole scene to life. If you want a visual representation of what the butchering site might have looked like centuries ago, I'd recommend watching famous hunter Stephen Ranella and his crew butchering a bison with stone tools made by archaeologists. It's very fascinating and insightful. I'll link the video in the description.
I'm just standing here thinking, this is such a perfect example of why we leave stuff in place, because this was discovered less than a decade ago. Somebody came through here and saw all these little pieces and we're like, oh, they're pretty, let's pick them up, let's keep them, let's let them collect dust in our house, whatever. It's like all evidence of what this was would be destroyed, it'd be gone, and there would be no archaeological record left on the landscape. Look at that, guys. It's definitely a point. Did that come out of a dead bison? Maybe broken on impact. I'm along this other rocky edge. If there was any doubt, that is 100% a man-made wall right there. Clearly those rocks have been piled up. This entire slope here was probably full of animals running down, and they just have various ambush points along this to finish them off. I'm curious if there's anything else up there. Just a short ways up, appears there's another one right here, almost a wall of sorts. That doesn't look natural up there. I'll have to take a look at that. It's not much, but it seems like just enough for somebody to crouch behind it, have a clear view of the slope up there. Now on a hunch, I came up high on this ridge, and sure enough, those are stacked rocks. And it's pretty far removed from it all, and so I was sitting up here trying to think, what would the purpose be? And my thought is this could be a signaler up here. He would have view of the jump over there and the herd coming over the hill. And perhaps there were people somewhere down in that valley that couldn't see it, and he had a way of signaling them. So we're back in the vicinity of the actual jump. And I could see how this slope, yes, it's not a dramatic vertical, but for an exhausted, possibly wounded animal, I could see broken legs on that, no problem. And look at this. This is perhaps the most compelling of it all. Just above the jump, a cairn perfectly placed to signify this is where you're driving them down, right there. And it just dawned on me, you see how green it is there. There's a stream, especially earlier in the season, that would be pretty wet, pretty marshy. I mean, it's still wet and marshy. So you'd bog the animals down in that as well.
The orchestra of violence was complete. I wasn't done hiking, finding more cairns or more blinds, everywhere you'd expect them to be, but any doubts in my mind of what this was were gone. Sure, maybe it's not a jump in the purest of senses, but enough. It was incredibly compelling to see in person, and I tip my hat to the local professor and his team who've thought outside the box and found something special up here. So why is this site potentially so important? Don't we already know that nomadic tribes hunted in the mountains? Yeah, to a degree, but it's more complex than that. As stated, the site is nearly 11,000 feet above sea level. It demonstrates a couple important things. First, at least at times, bison were here in enough numbers to make hunting them in mass a viable option. It challenges the belief that the bison was only a plains animal. Next, the development of an intricate drive network demonstrates an intimate knowledge of this high-altitude landscape. Clearly, humans were spending significant time high in the mountains. In the past, some scholars doubted the likelihood of so many people choosing to live in such a rugged and harsh environment. The discipline of alpine archaeology is gaining more recognition, as discoveries like this one show that perhaps we have overlooked a significant piece of pre-contact North America. It doesn't seem that far-fetched to me, and I look forward to venturing into more high places to continue learning and discovering.